the room because it's fun to see lots of community members here chit chatting with their neighbor. But we have a meeting to go through, so let's get it going. Today is April 25th. It's 2023, the year of. It's 6 p.m. and we are down at the mill in Main Street, Lake Stevens, Oregon. Or why does that say Oregon?
Lake
Or-
Stevens or join you.
Or we're in Lake Stevens, Washington, for those who had doubts. And we're down here live, and then we as well are on Zoom. And this is going to be recorded and later published on our YouTube channel. So with that, I would ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Or on Zoom. Okay. Let's kick this off. Caitlin, can you give us a roll call, please?
Councilmember Daughtry,
Present.
Councilmember Peter Shagan,
Present.
Councilmember Donahue,
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson,
Present.
Council President Jorstad,
Here.
Councilmember Ewing,
Present.
and Councilmember Tadgen.
Can I get a motion to excuse Councilmember Tadgett?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, let's get an approval of the agenda. And I was asked the council that we move discussion item 11B, establishment of senior civil engineer position, to place it under action items as a item C. We get an approval of that agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, I got a motion to approve that agenda. I should have let you run this, but
It's all good.
we're getting it done.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So with that, is there any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, so with that, we'll move to guest business and let's do some police department stuff. It's always fun. Chief.
All right, so thank you, Mayor, Council, and the citizens of Lake Stevens for allowing me to take this moment to honor the great work and accomplishments of the Lake Stevens Police Department. In 2022, we worked towards our mission of serving the Lake Stevens community by enhancing public safety and the quality of life through professional police services, organizational excellence, and community interaction. In 2022, our officers interacted with the community during 14,010 calls for service and 9,419 officer initiated contacts. This year has brought on some staffing challenges as we ran at minimum crews 75% of the time throughout the year. Our records unit processed 521 protection orders, a 108% increase over 2021, 935 public records requests. 300 of those were interagency requests from other law enforcement agencies. They processed 2,063 case reports, 2,147 gun transfer background checks, which was a 16% increase over 2021, 583 CPL applications, and had 2,966 customer interactions between phone calls and lobby walk-ins. Even with the staffing shortages, our staff stepped up, answering the calls and serving the community, protecting the life and property, and going above and beyond the call of duty to make Lake Stevens the 5th safest community in Washington, in the top 100 in the nation. I could not be prouder of the accomplishments of our staff and the adversity of facing these challenges we face in our profession. We are not perfect, but it goes to show if we focus on the mission, we'll make Lake Stevens Police Department one of the best law enforcement agencies in the nation. With that, I'd like to recognize some individuals tonight who have gone above and beyond in their service to the community. One individual that cannot make it tonight was Sergeant Michael Hinchin. He is our Officer of the Year. I'm just going to read a brief summary of what Michael did this past year. Michael is being recognized for his tremendous contribution towards the mission of the Lake Stevens Police Department. He is a constant professional with a high work ethic that earns the respect and trust of his peers in the community. He provides a consistent leadership and guidance in his role as a sergeant while still responding to the call for service without hesitation. He's truly motivated, proactive, and dedicated sergeant who's helping to improve department processes, train our personnel, and strengthen our leadership within the department. I commend him for his outstanding performance, devotion, and pride that he has exhibited as a member of the Lake Stevens Police Department in the city of Lake Stevens, being selected as the Lake Stevens Police Department 2022 Officer of the Year. He does our training for our force response and other things for our department. Michael is actually at training in Oak Harbor for his force response training. So let's take a moment to congratulate Mike. We'll wait for the next one as she is on her way. So Detective Phil Bassett, if you can come forward. So Detective Phil Bassett earns the Chiefs Award. Phil, you are being recognized for your tremendous contribution towards the mission of the Lake Stevens Police Department. You took the initiative to improve your own professional development and conducting better criminal investigations. To improve your knowledge and skills, you enrolled in several additional specialized investigations training in hopes to prepare yourself to obtain a detective position within the investigations unit. This specialized training classes often occurred on your regular scheduled days off and require you to spend time away from your family. The additional specialized training classes included basic homicide investigation, child abuse interviewing and assessment, sexual assault investigations, and several others. Recently, Detective Bassett used his training where his actions stood out. On July 4th, 2022, a report of a stabbing occurred near downtown Lake Stevens. Detective Bassett controlled the scene and investigated the incident with little assistance as other officers on duty were attempting to locate the suspect. Upon arrival on the scene, Detective Bassett demonstrated his initiative by effectively briefing the situation with other arriving officers and detectives. Detective Bassett already identified the victim and witnesses and had several of their statements obtained. Detective Bassett helped document and collect evidence. All these actions may not seem much individually, but recognizing their necessity and taking the initiative to get them done without prompting showed a good understanding of criminal investigation and initiative to provide a good investigation for the victim. Another incident, Detective Bassett responded to a death investigation. Detective Bassett took the initiative to acquire critical equipment that assisted with the investigation. Detective Bassett also took the steps to document the scene and secure the evidence without being asked. By taking those steps, Detective Bassett demonstrated his ability and willingness to apply his newly obtained training. Detective Bassett went above and beyond what is common practice to start the investigation when the scene would be handed off to investigations unit. Detective Bassett understands the importance of the department's mission and initiatives of organizational excellence and professional police services. I commend you, Phil, for outstanding performance, devotion, and the pride you exhibited as a member of the Lake Stevens Police Department and the city of Lake Stevens.
Yeah. Those are all these. You had them in all in order, and then all of a sudden it got changed. Yep, we'll find it. We had so many of them tonight. This must be the right one. Well, that's it. All right, thank you, Skylar. Yeah. All right. All right. Megan, there she is. Megan did show up. Come on up, Megan. Family. Hello, how are you? So our records supervisor, Megan LeBlanc, was selected as the Employee of the Year. Megan, you're being recognized for your tremendous contribution towards the mission of the Lake Stevens Police Department. You are truly motivated, proactive, and a dedicated employee. Your work on the body worn camera project and leadership and excellent policing task force has been outstanding. Your leadership shows the respect and caring for not only those assigned under you, but your fellow peer supervisors and those you serve. Your work on the department's annual report, LSPD overview, PowerPoint, and analyzation of the department's data does not go unnoticed and helps build transparency with the community and shows the true professional you are.
I commend you for your outstanding performance, devotion, and pride that you have exhibited as a member of the Lake Stevens Police Department and the city of Lake Stevens being selected as the Lake Stevens Police Department's 2022 Employee of the Year. Brandon Fisk. Corporal Fisk. Corporal Fisk, on June 22nd or June 26, 2022, officers were dispatched to a possible drowning incident at Davies Beach, a popular swim beach in the city of Lake Stevens. Corporal Fisk arrived almost immediately and was able to locate one of the victims who had already been pulled from the water, a 15-year-old female. Corporal Fisk ensured that the victim was breathing and placed him in a rescue recovery position, giving her the best chance of survival. Corporal Fisk next went to assist in locating additional victims. Bystanders located a second victim in the water, a 12-year-old male. Corporal Fisk assisted in removing the second victim from the water and immediately began CPR until relieved. A third victim was later found by the first responders, a 13-year-old male. While the 12 and 13-year-old males ultimately passed away, the 15-year-old female lived. Corporal Fisk's actions contributed to the 12-year-old, giving the 12-year-old the best chance at living and directly contributed to saving the 15-year-old's life. Corporal Fisk has tremendous work ethic and a sense of integrity that has a direct impact on the safety and the quality of life in Lake Stevens. I commend you, Brandon, for your outstanding performance, devotion, and the pride you have exhibited as a member of the Lake Stevens Police Department in the city of Lake Stevens. So what this is that he's receiving tonight is the certificate of merit. Congratulations, Brandon. Thank you so much. Gavin, Corporal Heineman.
So Chief, I think you forgot to say that Brandon had just returned back to work that day after the birth of that little angel of Brandon. Yeah.
Corporal Gavin Heineman. On June 26, 22, officers were dispatched to a possible drowning victim incident at Davies Beach, a popular swim beach in Lake Stevens. Corporal Heineman was on a separate incident with the fire department and notified fire of the dive call at Davies Beach. Corporal Heineman then responded to Davies Beach incident. Upon arrival, Corporal Heineman immediately assisted with another officer with CPR on one of the victims. Once fire arrived on scene, Corporal Heineman asked the group of juveniles if their friends were accounted for, which one of the juveniles stated they could not locate one of their friends. Corporal Heineman directed the dive team to where the juveniles pointed to as the last location in the water. The dive team was able to locate another victim. Approximately 5 minutes later, the third victim was found in the water. Once the dive team was approximately 20 feet from shore, Corporal Heineman entered the water to assist in bringing the victim ashore to start life-saving measures. Throughout this tragic event, Corporal Heineman stayed calm and focused, which enabled him to coordinate fire and law enforcement personnel in the best position to render aid to the victims. I commend you, Gavin, for your outstanding performance, devotion, and pride that you've exhibited as a member of the Lake Stevens Police Department and the city of Lake Stevens. Corporal Shedler. On March 21st, 2022, Officer Shedler was processing an arrestee at the Providence Medical Emergency Room when he was called to assist him with an extremely dangerous situation where a different male who was in crisis entered the emergency room with a knife and was threatening violence towards bystanders. Officer Shedler contacted the male, quickly de-escalating the situation through verbal communication. During this incident, no force was needed. No one was injured, and the male received the assistance he needed. Officer Shedler's demeanor and tactics changed this incident for the better, and he was recognized by the staff for his calm demeanor and control. I commend you, Chris, for your outstanding performance, devotion, and pride that you exhibited as a member of the Lake Stevens Police Department in the city of Lake Stevens. Certificate of Merit. Thank you. All right. This is a special introduction to a gentleman that's been here one of the longest with the Lake Stevens Police Department. But I'm also going to invite his wife, Kim, up with him, as she's put up with him for 25 years. Kim, if you can come forward. So Sergeant Balvick has been with the Lake Stevens Police Department since 1997. He started out as a reserve. He was promoted and moved to a full-time officer just a few months later. And then he was promoted to sergeant in August 6th of 2006. For those that don't know, Craig developed our drone program. He's worked through emergency management, worked on several events, including Aquafest with Mr. Daughtry, and worked through many other events that happen in the city. He coordinates those, works with the community, helps them fill out their permit, making sure all the necessary plans are in place. So if we do have to respond or evacuate, that is all Craig. Craig's worked on our emergency management radios, got those in place, got our all hazards mitigation plan in place, our CMP plan together. Craig has done a lot of work in his 25 years, and I'm so glad to have him. And this, not only that, he does supervise a squad on a daily basis. So he puts in a lot of extra work to help keep our community safe. With this, Craig, we're going to issue your 25 years of service award from the city, plus a Chiefs point. But this actually probably should go to your wife, since she's been dealing with you for so long. Congratulations. All right. Thank you all. One last thing I get to do tonight, it's another honor, is to introduce to you the newest Lake Stevens police officer, entry-level candidate, Kevin Lanto. Kevin, if you can come forward with your family. Kevin was born in Inglewood, California on September 18th, 1993. Kevin's father, Joselito, served in the United States Navy as a senior chief, and his mother, Veronica, is retired surgeon recovery nurse for Providence Hospital in Everett. He is the youngest of two kids. His sister's name is Katrina? Catherine. Kevin and his family moved to Lake Stevens back in 2003 after his father was reassigned to the Everett Naval Station. He then went to and attended Sunnycrest Elementary, North Lake Middle School, Caballero Mid-High, and Lake Stevens High School, where he graduated in 2012. Kevin was heavily involved in sports, lettering in baseball, football, which led him to attending Edmonds Community College on a baseball scholarship. Yes, we need him for softball games. In Kevin's second year at Edmonds Community College, he and Haley found out that they were pregnant with their first child. Kevin met his wife Haley in high school. Haley is Kevin's biggest supporter. If you were to ask Kevin, how do you do it? His response would be 10 out of 10 times. I wouldn't have done it without the love and support of my wife, Haley. On October 10th, 2014, they welcomed their daughter, Ava, into the world. Kevin gave up his dream in baseball and in schooling to focus everything on Haley and their first child. Kevin went on to find himself his first job in a janitorial business with Cintas. Careers came and gone as Kevin sought out for the better future for his family, working as a valet driver, construction laborer, and a FedEx driver. Kevin aspired to serve and join the military after college, but after starting a family at a young age, he decided to put on hold that career. Kevin is now 29 and now has had time to experience and learn from his previous careers, giving him the ability to strap down and focus on finding a career in law enforcement, where he is committed to his time and efforts into serving those around in his community that he grew up in. Kevin and Haley have been married for 7 years now and have 3 children, Ava, Kainoa, and Kyrie, and that's the sleepy one. We welcome Kevin to the city of Lake Stevens and the Lake Stevens Police Department. He is set to go to the academy right now on January 23rd, 2024. We hope, and next week we will find out that he's been moved up sooner as they start the regional academies in Pasco and in Spokane. But a local boy, that's what we're finding our local recruits right now. As you could tell, We have two of them back here that were all Lake Stevens too, and this is what we're finding. So your newest entry-level candidate, now you get to walk the gauntlet.
So, yeah. Bring your little kiddos.
Go Navy.
Say hi. His family's coming in right behind.
Perfect. There you go. Do you like the sound? What's up, buddy? Hey, thanks for everything.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for being able to recognize our employees and the great work they're doing. We look forward to 2023 and we're still working through the hiring process. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Thank you, to our, thank you to our law enforcement family. You guys are, you guys do great work, and even more so, your families who support you do amazing work, and thank you. Whew. I'm not a softie.
No, you're not.
You guys, I'm really not a softie.
Very tough.
Thank you. Very tough. Thank you. Aaron, would you like to introduce, is Aaron or is it, who we have? Shannon. Perfect.
My name is Shannon Front. I'm with the Public Works Department. I'm here on behalf of our Public Works Director, Erin Halverson. I'm here to introduce our new employee. This is Lori Erickson. Lori is the new Public Works Analyst. Before starting with us, she was a consultant and a professor at Central Washington University. She specializes in process improvement and operational excellence, and she always has fun with group facilitation, curriculum design, and training. Lori, actually, a lot of you probably know her. She taught a lot of the green belt and black belt lean training classes here at Lake Stevens. When Lori isn't working, she loves to be outside with her husband. She really enjoys hiking, kayaking, fishing, and being in the snow. And she just recently got into archery. She also enjoys being in her yard with her veggie garden. Last year, she grew lots of things, but her favorite thing to grow is pumpkins. She also likes to use the pumpkins as target practice for her archery. When the weather is not nice, she enjoys cooking all kinds of things, from appetizers to homemade pot pies, baking, especially bread and desserts, and hanging out with her pets. You have 2 cats? 4. Oh, she has 4 cats. Currently, Lori lives in Milton, and she will be looking to move closer to Lake Stevens here soon. So,
Great.
welcome, Lori.
Yeah.
Now you get to go.
Great to have you. Yeah. Shannon. Nice to meet you.
I feel like it's kind of hard. You can maybe go down a little bit lower. Let me. There you go.
All right, great. Let's move into citizens' comments. And the way we do citizens' comments is we provide citizens the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes to the city council. If you're in person, we ask for a little green sheet. I have one. And if you are online, we ask you to raise your little digital hand. Maybe it's a big digital hand, and we will recognize you, bring you into the panel, and you can have 3 minutes. Is there anybody online who wishes to provide citizens' comments tonight?
Yeah, Nathan Packard has his hand up, so I'm going to bring him in.
Okay, great.
Hey, Nathan, you're in the room. Go ahead and unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. Just wanted to address 2 quick items related to the interchange between 20th Street or the the junction of 20th Street and Highway 2, right as you come down the hill from the trestle. One item is the stoplight, particularly in the evening as folks are coming back into town. There's starting to be some aggressive piling up on the hill, even to the point where the traffic has stopped all the way back to the 20th Street and 204 interchange. So obviously folks are trying to get home. The traffic is never great, but the bigger issue I think is more of a safety issue as that starts to pile up further and further up the trestle. I don't know what can be done there. If somebody from Public Works can look at monitoring the traffic lights and timing or anything like that, but just curious what we can do there. And then the other item is in that same interchange, the garbage and debris. There's a significant amount of junk there. It just really does not, present a good image of our city and our community. I know that's not necessarily part of our jurisdiction. I understand that that's owned by WSDOT, but curious what we can do as a community to help improve that and facilitate it, or just go get it done if the WSDOT won't do anything about it. Thank you.
Yeah, Nathan, I agree. Appreciate your words. Anybody else online?
I don't see any other digital hands raised.
Okay, great. So with that, we'll go in person and I have Kate. You could hit the podium. That'd be great.
Hello, Council. My name is Kate McKenzie, and I'm here on behalf of the Lake Stevens Arts and Parks Foundation. Later in the agenda, you'll be hearing from our Parks Director and on supporting our concert in the park series that we are planning for this summer. And I just want to ask for your support. We had a great series last year. It was the first time we took on a multi-week music event in North Cove Park, and we hope to do it again and have even bigger success, higher quality musicians, a bigger crowd, and we absolutely need your partnership with that. We had a tiny small amount of volunteers who did 99.9% of the work. And it was fun for us, but it was not sustainable. So we hope that we'll be able to continue to provide for the community and alongside the City of Lake Stevens. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Kate. All right, with that, we'll move to council business, council president.
Thank you. Let's start right next to me with Councilman Daughtry.
Thank you, Council President. I attended SCIT this morning where we had a legislative update for some things happening. Found out that we got some, you'll probably talk about the dollars coming in, right, for food bank and okay, I'll let you do that. Also talked about some of the things that WashDOT's getting ready to do. Also attended Community Transit Board of Directors meeting where we talked quite a bit about climate mitigation, our zero emissions program that we're instituting with our long range plan, and another bout of our long range plan, how we're going to be connecting to the light rail system. We also talked about the Lake Stevens pilot project. If anybody's interested in that, there is a online survey where you can go onto Community Transit and tell them what you think the problems of transit in Lake Stevens is. So what that's about is an innovative project, much like Uber, maybe. We're the ones that get to decide what it actually looks like. But if you have for instance, some of the students that are here might have an issue where I can't get from the high school to Capitol Hill Park or whatever. They all recognize we have a 1,000-acre lake in the middle of the city. So they're trying to figure out what the issues are and how we can get those issues taken care of. So that's on the Community Transit website. So that's all I have.
Next.
Sorry, Councilman Peters.
Sorry, just waiting my turn. Today we had a little orientation or a tour of the food bank progress that's taking place there on 20th. It is coming along. Hopefully, I think they were looking at middle of June opening, I think.
July.
Middle July. July, okay. Sometime this summer. And it's nice to see that is finally coming into play. So very good to be a part of that. The other thing, this weekend we had a rowing regatta in town. And I came down Saturday morning and it was just really cool because I have participated in a lot of rowing regattas over the years. And this venue out here is one of the more attractive venues I have seen in the last 10 years. And it was cool because it really made me feel proud. It was just kind of a weird feeling thinking about what we used to have and now what we have today. It is such a blessing. So it's a great place to live. Great to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Donahue.
Thank you. Last week, I attended the Planning Commission meeting where the main focus was an update on the climate mitigation plan. I believe we're going to receive a similar presentation tonight, and I won't steal Melissa's thunder, but lots to discuss and some pretty good comments and feedback from the planning commissioner. So
Thank you. Councilwoman Dickinson.
I attended a school board meeting 2 weeks ago where students and teachers were honored. That's always fun to see. I made a shout out for the Pride event in June. I attended the Parks and Arts Foundation meeting, and I was thrilled when they announced that artist Leah Everett will be doing an art piece celebrating the women who had to work in the mills when the men went off to fight in World War I. That is so amazing. I also attended the Citizen Advisory Council meeting, and the climate mitigation plan was discussed. Only one Citizen Advisory Council member was in attendance, sadly. I attended the Pride Planning meeting, which is really taking off. The next week, I spoke with the Key Club at Lake Stevens High School, and they are very interested in helping out with the Pride event. I'm very excited about that. The library board meeting last Thursday was so exciting. We were presented with the layout plans for the new library. It will be 14 to 17,000 square feet, and per asks from the community, will include an outdoor learning area. And I'll be sure to ask them what kind of a base they're going to have there and make sure it doesn't get muddy. I'm pretty sure they're on top of that, take care of that. They have done much in the planning that also includes the wetlands and have worked closely with the Conservation District in that regard. I also attended Earth Day at Eagle Ridge. It was great to see the young people hard at work and folks working on the trail as well. And of course, I was at the food bank today getting a tour, and I was so cheered by the fact that Volunteers of America will be upstairs, and it was great to see council members there as well. So that's all I got to say. Is that enough? I think so.
Thank you. Councilman Ewing.
I just want to piggyback on the food bank tour and thank all of our citizens, elected officials, who have made that building a reality. I've been here in Lake Stevens 18 years, and it's been talked about for 17 of those years without much action. And it's really just been a lot of people. And today I learned about more behind the scenes things that have happened among people in our community that have helped make that a reality. And so I don't want to name names, but it's just really like Councilman Peter Shagan said, I guess an element of satisfaction to see people working together for common good for people in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment. I attended my first Snohomish County Cities quarterly dinner this last week. Kind of COVID meant that during most of my term, those weren't available. So it was great to be a part of that and see elected officials across the county and have a chance to connect and share things we have in common and things that are really different between our cities. Had a great presentation by the Puget Sound Regional Council. And then I guess just want to echo the food bank tour was great and super excited that we're going to have that resource for our community. So looking forward to having it open. I also heard June, Gary, so we'll see. Maybe we could have a poll and see who wins. That's all I have. Thanks.
Great. Good reports. Couple of things. I'd like to welcome all the Lake Stevens High School seniors in the crowd. Apparently close to the end of the semester. And we put off visiting the city council. So, but I appreciate you being here. I would like to tell you that I admire your teachers because I think I did 5 classes today of civics, and I'm worn out. Spent. Great opportunity for me to talk with our high schoolers, and the way I do that class is I open it up for questions and I get some great questions from the high schoolers. And the only other people I have more fear of is when I ask the senior center get questions from them. So our high schoolers are great. They're very in tune and understanding of what's going on in their city. And it's fun to see their minds work and their questions. So I appreciate you all being here. For many of you, you may or may not know that the legislative session is over. It finished up Sunday evening. And if you're a legislative kind of person, you were watching to the end. I may or may not admit that I was there. And just mainly looking at what they were going to do with the Blake decision. And it looks like they did nothing on it. So one of the ordinances that we passed back in March looks like it will be implemented on July 1st. So one of the things I did do yesterday was get with my fellow mayors across Snohomish County, and we talked this through, making sure that we're coordinated in our ordinances so that you don't have this hodgepodge of ordinances over here, ordinance over there. This they can do over there, but they can't do over there. So it becomes problematic that we don't have a state level law. The other concern is county, if county's going to do something or not. And so we'll see. But I will tell you this, that the Snohomish County mayors are all on the same page with what we've already passed. And then we're also looking at where there might be holes in that we need to fill in as well.
So we are going to bring it back, right?
We've
I know, but don't we have some amendments we want to do on that?
Yeah, we might need to, we're looking at seeing where we might have some holes and we may need to amend it, see where we're at.
So if all the Snohomish County mayors are on board and we want to make sure the language, I'm sure there'll be some more tweaks. Do we have an idea of when that coordination might take place?
Yeah, we coordinated it yesterday.
Okay, you guys
Yeah.
are,
They're on it. And you know, we've already passed it. Marysville's already passed it. Arlington's already passed it. Everett's trying to, did Lynn, I can't remember if Lynn was, Christina wasn't there.
There's United SEC, she said they found, or maybe they're getting ready.
I think they're getting ready to.
I think they're getting ready.
And then what's been passed has been shot out to the rest of the mayors. They're all on board with pushing it with their council.
the only reason I ask is I saw the news, there was only 4 mayors in Snohomish County, that you being one of them that spoke out publicly about that. And so I appreciate you doing that along with Cassie Franklin and John Naring are the 3 that I know of. Offhand, I don't remember who the 4th one was, but
Russell Weeda.
oh, Russ, that's right, sold.
So we'll see how that goes. The governor could call a special session and we could see something done beforehand. I'll keep my fingers not crossed. So. Additionally, in the legislative session, we did get a win on the pursuit policy. Moving that to a reasonable suspicion instead of probable cause, which will help our officers out and try and reduce some of the issues out on the streets. Lake Stevens specific, we did get some wins as far as bringing back some of our tax dollars to the city, which is always the goal. And that is, we got about $1.1 million to help rehab the Cedarwood Community Clubhouse. That'll be a great investment. We got about $764,000 for the museum build. And then the Lake Stevens Food Bank picked up $675,000 to help finish up that building there. So all around, pretty good win for the city of Lake Stevens in funding some things for the future. So I think that is all I have. So with that, let's move. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, there's one correction I would make on the April 11th. It's reported that we are the 5th safest city in Snohomish County. I believe that's the state. So I want to make sure that correction is made.
Okay, we can make that correction. So with that, can I get a motion to pass?
Move to approve with that correction.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All those, or do we have any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's go to action items and let's start out with Director Garceau, music in the park, monetary contribution.
All right, so the Lake Stevens Arts and Parks Foundation is looking to bring the music in the parks back to us again this year here in North Cove. They're planning to run 7 music events starting on July 12th and ending on August 30th. Those will happen on Wednesday nights from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, which will follow the closing of the farmers market. With that, they have requested both in-kind support as well as monetary requests to make the event happen. The in-kind support has been reviewed internally and ran through the city administrator who had passed it at that time. The Arts Foundation was pending a grant, a monetary ask from the county for the music series, but unfortunately that was declined. When that was declined, came back to the city to see if we could support $3,500, which breaks down to $500 a night to help pay for the bands that will occur. If bands are more than 500s, then they are proposing they would cover the difference. With that, they are proposing to bring back the beer garden as well. Of course, Kate McKenzie is here if you'd like to hear more from her about the event or have any direct questions. And I have attached their full request in detail. It's 2 pages long.
Do you have any questions for Sarah?
This was using the new thing that you brought to us a couple of weeks ago, right?
This request started prior to that new process, and so I did not have them go back and fill out that process. We went ahead and completed this request on the old way.
A little bit out of this one, but is that process now our process going forward, or have we actually got that in process yet?
That is for in-kind donations. Yes, any future requests will need to fill out that application and will be ran through internally. Monetary requests will still be coming forward to the council.
I would move to approve the music in the park monetary contribution.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Sarah. Let's go on to a contract amendment for Aqua Technics with Shannon.
Okay, good evening. Tonight, I'm requesting council to authorize the mayor to sign the supplemental agreement to the 5-year professional services agreement with Aqua Technics to perform lake management, specifically aquatic vegetation management in 2023 on Lake Stevens for an amount not to exceed $99,953. The city has been working with Aqua Technics for about 10 years now to perform annual aquatic vegetation management as well as the alum treatment for phosphorus mitigation. Last year, over the years, we have been trying to manage the milfoil population in the lake. Over these past 10 years, we've been really successful in managing milfoil, and we see very little occurrence of it actually in the lake to date. Last year, we didn't even treat for milfoil in the summer as we didn't see it in the spring survey. The fall survey did show a little bit of milfoil, but nothing significant. Because of this shift in our original target to target milfoil, we're starting to look at some other options and how we manage aquatic vegetation. This year, we're proposing to do a more in-depth survey of the lake so that we can get a comprehensive view of all of the aquatic vegetation in the lake, and that'll allow us to form a more targeted management plan. Under a permit that we have with ecology, we can treat nuisance and invasive aquatic vegetation, and that does allow us to treat native vegetation, but there's certain stipulations on how we target native vegetation. And we do that to basically identify the beneficial uses of the lake. So we have to balance the ecological habitat that the vegetation provides, as well as the recreational benefit. To do that, this additional survey that we're proposing will allow us to be more specific on where we target and what types of herbicide that we use to target this, so that we are in compliance with our regulatory permit, but then also making sure that we really manage the ecological benefits of the vegetation, as well as really addressing the recreational use of the lake. So with that, and I did put in here a not to exceed costs. This is an estimated amount of not to exceed that's in the 2023 scope of services. We won't know the exact application amount until we do the surveys. We're planning to do 2 surveys here this spring. Last year, as I mentioned, we did not use the full amount for our project management budget, and so we don't anticipate needing the full amount. In the current budget, we have 80,000. We anticipate that being enough, but in the event that we do need more to target specific vegetation based on the surveys, we'll come back for a budget amendment at that time. And then with that, I'll take any questions.
How do they do the mapping?
How do they do the mapping?
Is it like ride around in my little rowboat, checking out, seeing what I can see in the water? How do they do that?
Yeah, so that is the one survey that they do. They do ride around, they look at the vegetation, and then they map it with GPS, and then they make a GIS map for it. And then this other mapping that they're proposing is, oh man, I might get it wrong. I should have. It's like an underwater map. It's almost like a sonar, so that they can look at the biomass and look at the amount of vegetation that's just off the shore and a little bit out, so that we can actually get an idea of how much is out there. There's really specific requirements on how much we can treat if it's native vegetation. And so looking at the entire biomass of the vegetation will allow us to pick those areas that would be preferential for treating, but then while still leaving enough vegetation for the ecological benefit.
Shannon, a question I would have, and maybe I missed it, excuse me, in here. What fund is this money coming out of? Is this out of the storm water fund or general fund or what?
Yeah, it's out of the stormwater fund. Yeah.
Stormwater fund. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
paid. Yeah.
Shannon, the other day I was coming around the lake as I usually do, and I saw somebody out there. It looked like it might have been Aquatech. Have we already had any surveys done in the last week?
Nope. We haven't approved the 2023 scope of services, so they shouldn't have been out there at this time.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know what that was. The boat out there with a big yellow tank on it.
Don't ask questions, Kim. You know,
Oh,
some-
I wonder what they were doing.
All right, can I get a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve this, excuse me a second. Contract amendment for Aqua Techniques in, for 2023.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, and then we do have the 11B that we've moved up into an action item, and that's going to be Kim, establishment of the senior civil engineer position.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share my screen. I have a couple of slides just for discussion purposes. Okay.
What if we had? Didn't get invited. Great.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Kim Klinkers. I'm the city engineer. I am here to talk through a new position request for the Engineering Division of Public Works. So just to do a quick overview, earlier this year, I presented a proposed work plan for our 2023 capital projects, including our Transportation Benefit District projects. This evening, I will overview a few highlights from that discussion and overview our TBD projects once again. And then I'll conclude with a request to authorize the establishment of a senior civil engineer position to be added to the Engineering Division of Public Works. So the previous work plan presentation earlier this year, I overviewed the members of our engineering division to help put faces with names. They're shown up on the screen. The requested position would work alongside the capital projects manager as a senior civil engineer to specifically deliver the TBD projects. This position would also supervise our engineering tech. And the new position, requested position would provide project management, planning, engineering analysis, and technical expertise to support all phases of the TBD capital projects and programs within Public Works. All of the TBD work is eligible for reimbursement to the street fund. And finance is anticipating to bring a budget amendment in May to address the TBD sales tax that began being received on April 1st. And then to specifically identify some of the elements for this position, the senior civil engineer will be a licensed professional engineer. We are looking for someone with strong project management experience, preferably in public works or local government. We anticipate hiring this position at a mid-range salary. HR helped us do a salary survey in our local area to get a competitive salary range. And we are anticipating the candidate would begin around mid-July. All these parameters helped us estimate a 2023 budget impact of around $91,000. The proposed fund distribution would be 80% streets, 10% stormwater, and 10% from the general fund. And as I mentioned, all the TBD eligible expenses would be reimbursed by the TBD revenue, which would go back into the street fund. And then I wanted to quickly overview our list of TBD projects that was included in Resolution 22-10. So the TBD is 0.2%. That sales tax took effect April 1st. The first TBD revenue is expected to be received at the end of June and then will continue monthly. And the finance department is projecting about $1.5 million of TBD revenue to be received on an annual basis. So the TBD is intended to provide funding to support additional capital projects for the next 10 years, including safe walkway and sidewalk connections to schools, street maintenance, and traffic congestion relief. The finalized list of the TBD projects are shown on the screen, which was included in the resolution that went to the voters. The projects are listed in their priority ranking. So the projects at the top have a higher score than the ones at the bottom. There's about 24 TBD projects totaling almost $33 million. In addition, extra funding will be dedicated to our annual preservation program. The corresponding map on the screen identifies the location of the TBD projects for the next 10 years with the schools highlighted in orange, because that's the feedback we got from the voters. That to identify the higher priority projects were next to schools. And the Public Works Department plans to advance the higher priority sidewalk projects each year as funding and workload allows. So the requested position is intended to begin working on the yellow highlighted projects, which are at the top of the list and circled in red on the map. These include 3 sidewalk gaps that we have along 91st Avenue that serve middle schools and elementary schools. In addition to 117th Avenue Northeast sidewalk, and then the project at the top, 16th Street Northeast, which connects Main Street to Machias Cutoff, was one of the projects that we were hoping to receive funding from the legislature that we've heard has been postponed quite significantly. So the intent would be to work on some preliminary scoping and try to look for future grant opportunities to help fund that project. So the new position would begin working on these yellow projects. This year would start working in the design phase in addition to any property acquisition that may be needed. And the intent would try to have some of these projects under construction next year in 2024. Also, I wanted to highlight the green projects identified on the roadway section. We have Main Street. That project's currently being designed right now and it's lined up for construction next year. And then the Community Development Department is working on some preliminary scoping for the 91st Street Northeast project. That was a quick overview of the TBD projects that have recently started acquiring revenue for with the TBD sales tax. And as I overviewed earlier this year, We talked about all the capital projects that we currently have budgeted in addition to these TBD projects, and we overviewed our staffing resources, and we identified the need that we could really use additional staff to help deliver these important capital projects. So this evening, I'm bringing to council the requested action to authorize establishment of the senior civil engineer position at the salary range that's identified in the staff report. There's a little bit more information about some of the projected costs and the budget impact in the staff report. I'm happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Kim, I got a question. Out of the salary for this year, 100, let's see, I guess this year would be 91,000. How much of that would be paid back through the TBD?
So
I guess the actual question would be is how much do you anticipate the TBD taking up of this person's time other than other stormwater, streets and those kinds of things? So I'm looking at a range of how much is going to be TBD money going to that salary versus the 80%, 10%, 10% that you have from the other funds.
yeah, I think that we anticipate 80 to 90% of the new person's, the new position will be primarily working on these TBD capital projects. So a large majority of their time will be eligible for TBD.
So then anything past the TBDs they do on other projects would be 80%, 10%, 10% from the other funds.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Kim, I had a quick question. It's very loud. Do we have any sense of what kind of cost savings we can expect by completing these projects sooner with the additional person brought on versus not hiring somebody and extending those projects out?
Yes, that's a good question. I think on average with inflation, a project that might cost a couple $100,000 this year is tended to cost an extra 3 to 5% for every additional year that we postpone it. So I could go through the exercise and try to crunch some of those numbers to get an actual value to hiring this position now. And I can report that back to you. But in general, there is a cost savings with staffing up now to help deliver the projects that we currently have funding for, as opposed to waiting in future years where it's going to cost more money to design and construct.
Given that this is an action item now, I'm comfortable going with your gut. Do you expect that this position will pay for itself in the long run by being able to accelerate these projects and save costs that way?
Absolutely. Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would move to approve the establishment of the senior civil engineer position.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to establish a senior civil engineer position. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, council, for approving that. That person to work as soon as whoever it is we hire and find a desk for them.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's move on to, looks like we're headed to discussion items. Climate mitigation plan, Melissa.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. This evening, we're bringing the climate mitigation plan back to you as an update and also summary of what's occurred since the last time we presented to you earlier this month. So this evening, I'm not asking for any formal action, just asking for your input and further direction on the approach for the plan and also on the draft vision statement options that are outlined in the staff report. As you recall, at the April 4th meeting, we brought this update to you and we asked for some input on the draft vision statement as well as potential targets. We had some discussion on that. And then based on council's discussion as well as the public input we've received to date and legislative bodies as Councilmember Dickinson said, we took it to the Citizens Advisory Committee as well as the Planning Commission recently. So based on all of the input from there, the staff and the consultants are moving forward with the approach and the plan to have a soft approach, not outlining hard targets, but basically drafting the plan based on the vision statement, which is why this evening the options are important in getting your input. And then also identifying the measures that we can directly take as a city in terms of some of the draft measures list that we had, those particular measures, what can the city directly affect or what do we have control over, as well as those we can support through interagency coordination. So the big news, as the mayor had already stated, is the legislative update wrapped up last week. The week before, I believe, and House Bill 1181, which actually requires the climate change element in the city's comprehensive plan, is passed the House and the Senate and is on the governor's desk for signature. So that would make it a mandatory element of the city's comprehensive plan. And I've been just trying to get some more updates on that in order to bring you some information in terms of what we anticipate that process would be in the future. I sat on a webinar last week with Department of Commerce, and in that webinar directly asked two questions. One, what would the timing be for implementation and a full rollout of this? And based on their answer was for jurisdictions that are planning for the 2024 comp plan update, which is we're part of that jurisdiction group, then the full rollout, they expect this to be implemented by 2029. So that's the date we're really looking at, full implementation of a climate change element in our comprehensive plan. And then the other question was, are targets required as part of this House bill? And the answer is no, there are not direct targets listed in the House bill. What would be required is that jurisdictions would be required to demonstrate progress towards the goals that are outlined in the comp plan element in 2029. So I just want to give you some of that feedback from what I heard in the webinar last week with Department of Commerce. And then Commerce is providing a model element and draft guidance to jurisdictions and how to roll this out and how to integrate it into our comp plan. They have provided a draft to jurisdictions to provide comment on, and then they ultimately are planning on getting a finalized version of that out later this year, probably in December, so that we can utilize that in our implementation moving forward. So for shifting gears a little bit, the public input that we received to date, when we brought this to you back in April 4th, the survey hadn't concluded. It has concluded on April 6th, 2 days later. And in your staff report, there's an attachment 2 that has the full results of the survey that we heard from the public. And we also have summaries of both the public workshop and the focus group meetings. And those are attachments 3 and 4 in the staff report. What we heard generally from the survey is that Lake Stevens should be less ambitious, which was 35%, or on par at 34%. So 1% difference with similar cities and its climate reduction goals. And that is aligning with what we heard from council at the last meeting. And so that was in those attachments, you can see the rest of the details from the different survey results and the meetings that we had. And then I wanted to mention that we talked briefly about targets. And when we had talked about targets before, we had talked about state reduction targets and clean air agency targets. What we also talked about was what targets is the county slating. Their existing targets right now are strictly for municipal operations and government. Subsequent to our last meeting, I did reach out to the county to identify what are they proposing in their 2024 update. And in their update, they are proposing to adopt Puget Sound Clean Air Agency targets, which are regional targets, not the state ones that we talked about. But these targets are also the goals of the Puget Sound Regional Council. Thank you. Vision 2050 plan. And so that is a regional plan, and that's also the multi-county planning policies and the county planning policies adopt those as well. So that is just some information that we wanted to present to you, and we would expect that we would utilize that information into the future as we will continue work on this plan and full implementation in 2029. So a little bit about our approach for the cost benefit assessment. Since we last met, we were required to select 10 of the total measures to the consultant to provide them the particular measures that they are going to do the cost benefit assessment on. And our approach there was to select 2 actions from each focus category, and one being of a higher impact rating and the other being something that the city can directly take impact on, or I'm sorry, directly take action on, so we can control that, because as we've already talked about, there are a number of things that are directly outside of the city's control or with other agencies such as PSE or PUD. And so those 10 actions are listed in attachment 5 in the staff report. And then lastly, in the staff report, asking for your input on the draft vision statement, which option you prefer. We laid out 3 different options. And when we went to Planning Commission last week, they were split on the desired options. There were some planning commissioners who liked option 1 and some who liked option 2. And so ultimately there was a split there. For staff, we prefer option 3. And so we're really looking to the council for your input on these draft vision statements this evening. We do need to provide a draft vision statement to the consultant in order for them to keep moving forward and writing the draft plan. So looking for that tonight. And then just quickly, next steps. We anticipate we'll get the draft plan from the consultant in May. We'll be sharing with you that in late May, as well as the Planning Commission, and asking for public input on that draft plan at that time as well. And then we're looking for final adoption in June. So overall, this is sort of the baseline plan, a soft approach to then integrate it into some of the elements in our 2024 update. And then we know we'll be doing continuing work on this in the future, ultimately with that 2029 date in the end of mind. So at this point, I'd just be happy to take any questions you have and also ask for your input on the draft vision statement options. Thank you.
Did you state that city staff prefer option 3?
We do.
Is that-
Yes, that's correct.
I guess my 2 cents, I feel like you're the experts in this work and you're here presenting it to us. If you're feeling as though that option best reflects the work that you're doing, I would certainly support that. That's just me.
And the reason that we did suggest option 3 for staff is it does, excuse me about that. It aligns very well with the actions that the city is proposing for a cost benefit analysis. Some of the comments of the Planning Commission, for example, the one that had the language directly about the lake, there was a preference for just communicating about the lake, since that does remain the central feature in the community. And then the option 2, I think it was just sort of the flow and readability. So it's not to say we can't deliver a hybrid of all 3 of these, but again, just looking for that input tonight. We appreciate your comments.
So just one thing that I found particularly helpful during the Planning Commission meeting was the comment about how this will actually support and inform the consultant too. So I don't know if that's worth discussing briefly, just to let council know.
Were you talking about the measures, the draft list of measures that we had?
The vision statement, it was my understanding during the Planning Commission meeting that the vision statement will be used as sort of a frame of reference for the consultant in their draft report.
Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah. So that is why this vision statement is very important. It is front and center of the plan. It's the heart of the plan. And since we're doing a soft approach, it's really meant to be the basis that the plan is going to be framed around. So yes, was there more, Councilmember Donahue, that you want? Okay.
No, just making sure that
helps.
It's more than just a vision statement. It's kind of a plan for the consultant to follow.
Correct. Thank you.
Ms. Place, did you say the people wanted a less ambitious plan? I missed that completely. How did I miss that? Would you clarify that a little bit, if you could?
Yes, that's on attachment 2, which is the public survey results that we received. And I'd have to find the question number, but there was a question that asked about, would you want to be less ambitious, more ambitious, on par? And the results we got were approximately 35% said less ambitious, and 34% said on par. So it's a really close
That's surprised
percentage.
I remember seeing it now. I just have to say, it was fun that the questions were in English and Spanish. Just had to say that. Loved it. Yeah. So walkability and being able to use bikes safely in our city. This is something I heard about all the time when I doorbelled. It's critical. And I really appreciate all our citizens and the comments they made. It just is important. We need to have you speak up so that we know what direction to go. That's all I have to say. And thank you, Melissa, for your hard work.
Thank you.
Any other comments from Melissa? All right, Melissa, thank you very much for your time.
Yes. Thank you. And Director Wright just said it's a question number 12 in the survey, just for reference.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, let's move to item C, changes to cybersecurity requirements. Troy and Nick.
Yeah, thank you. And good evening, council. Let me get my screen shared up here. All right. So so this is really a topic about like cybersecurity requirements that are changing, as well as our first 2023 security report where we're at. So this, there we go. So I'm gonna go back up. So basically this slide is going to just kind of overview, like I'm trying to do this high level. I've added some supplemental inside of the packet today, as well as the NCSR report as far as where we stand. So high level, what's happening, what's changing, where do we stand, where do we go, and what do we need to move forward. So with that, as you know, like with the current atmosphere of the environment, with geopolitical stuff, there's a lot of we're in an elevated threat stance, and so there's attacks constantly coming in from foreign domestic adversaries. We're seeing those on critical infrastructures as well. And so that's really prompted federal and state regulations to start to put cybersecurity as a forefront on all of our minds. So, and so as we look at this, is like this is kind of a timeline of how some of these bills that have kind of come down the pipeline. So SB 5432 was Washington State, where they actually formalized a cybersecurity body to start to evaluate all the infrastructure, the citizens, infrastructure, critical, public safety, even our retail, to find out where we stand. And that kind of started to formulate their plans on how do we move forward. The executive order 1428 was basically the president's mandate to start looking at all state, federal, and tribal organizations to better secure infrastructure and to adopt formal policies and procedures to mitigate those risks. Then as that happens, FBI starts to update their policies, and they've updated their policies to this new standard version 592, which added a whole host of new requirements that are going to start being auditable and actionable. Oops. And then the SB, this is a Washington State Senate Bill 5518. At the time that we did this, it was on the governor's desk waiting for signature. It's been passed. This bill is really is basically formalizing the fact that cybersecurity is now a requirement of emergency management, risk management for state and local governments. So that's kind of what's coming down on the pressures. So I want to just really show this is really more of some incidental type, information that's kind of coming out with recent attacks that have caused data exfiltration, and so you can kind of see some of this stuff. The Washington or the Attorney General office, I think I forgot to add that, did I? I might have forgot to add that, but there's a formal report from the Attorney General that has the overall assessment from the state and what they've seen and how many records that affect Washingtonians, and it's quite a lot. So with that being said, what's at risk? So with these new regulations that are coming down, and they're going to start having more requirements for grant funding, and this is to be able to do public safety utilities or other infrastructure projects. They're going to want to make sure that you have a security model that is a mature model that's got a certain governance maturity level. And with that, cybersecurity insurance, they're going to be starting to look at these things because it's going to be kind of the state's going to driving these things down. And so as it starts to flow down, we're trying to get ahead of this, that there's going to probably be additional requirements that come down for your insurance to be covered. And then as well, because, CGIS is our most stringent regulatory body. The police accreditation, kind of hinders on making sure that we're compliant with those policies. So as you can see, like the average cost right now, as we looked at it, well, this is in 2022, but the average cost of a per record data breach is $242 per record. And that's just really kind of results into, either operational capacity being degraded. You can't provide services to the citizens or your main mission statements. But you also have like a diminished trust from constituents, partners, contractors, businesses. I mean, if you get a data breach, it's we've seen cities that have had this and their environments completely shut down. It's a disaster. And we don't really have a formalized process to be able to handle that. And so this is where we're kind of looking at, like, we need to make some actions. So right now, what we're seeing right here, this is a sample slide that kind of, do you want to hit some of this?
Yeah. So basically, the new CGIS policy, we said that, Tori said there was a bunch of actionable and sanctionable items in here. You can see that these things are coming, and they are coming very, very fast. A whole bunch of stuff that is 10.1 there. System integrity verification tools, that basically means we have to have a piece of software installed into every device in the city that is auditing and making sure that nothing is changing without us knowing it. And to do that, that means we have to have this governance of change controls around there so that we are signing off and saying, yes, that is a change we made, or no, that's not a change we made. Because without that piece of paperwork, we can't say for sure that our tools did what we said they did. And again, we will be held accountable by Washington State Patrol and the FBI for this. And that's what I say. I mean, go ahead to the next slide there. So that takes us into cybersecurity maturity models. So these are formal structures. That said, right now we have a very good posture, but we are at what's considered an ad hoc state. Things are being done. Things are being done well. Everything is covered, which we'll see in the NCSR, but we don't have a overarching formal policy to make sure that we don't get gaps over time. You've already seen that through the last year that there's been large staffing changes within IT. And if you don't have formal governance, you don't have the paperwork behind it, you don't have the policies and procedures in place. As staff changes, institutional knowledge is lost, systems get missed, workflows aren't performed, things of that nature happen. And the other thing is cybersecurity is never done. It's a life cycle. It's a continuous process improvement. Things are always changing. And the goal is to have actionable data as to where you are today, places for improvement, and again, how you're going to deal with the next set of evolving threats and things coming down. So go on to the next slide. So the Nationwide Cybersecurity Review is sort of the overarching thing, but the Nationwide Cybersecurity Review started in 2018. It is written to a NIST cybersecurity framework. So this is an overarching framework that covers everything, and it has 5 pillars or functions that are there. So identify. So basically, what are we trying to protect? What we are doing to protect it. How are we making a timely detection of something is occurring? How are we responding to it? And then how do we return it back to full functioning and recovering? You'll notice that these pillars look a heck of a lot like FEMA's ICS and incident response and incident management. That's not a coincidence. Cybersecurity has always kind of been this incident response offshoot, and now it's being formalized and pulled back up into FEMA as an all hazard and everything else. You want to go on to the next slide? So in the NCSR maturity model, you have things. So a 1 in the model means it's not being done. You want to scroll that down just a bit?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to get there. So 1 is not performed. We did not score 1 on any of the 422. So yay, as somebody coming in cold and scoring this, that was great. We have a lot of stuff sitting at this informally done and at the 2s and the 3s. And informally done and documented policy is great, but we need to move it all the way forward. And in fact, the recommended level for everything is a 5. And the critical point of a 5 there is you have to have a formal governance framework overarching on top of everything. So one of the things we're going to be bringing to you guys on council here is in the very near future is formally accepting the NIST cybersecurity framework as our governance model, and then delegating, authorizing and delegating IT and a team to deal with that. So here's our results. And it's unfortunately quite a bit gray as to exactly what the peering model is here. NCSR isn't super great at that. And unfortunately for us, we kind of hit a breakdown on a lot of questions where we're just, 4 or 5 FTE and things like that into certain bands. So I think we are actually getting compared to, cities of probably more like populations of 100,000 than what we are. That's kind of my guess here. So take it with a grain, take a grain of salt that, but that said, we are still held to that number 5, that red line all the way across. Like I said, we didn't score a single one. We're sitting just shy of 3, which means we've got a lot of things in policy documented. The full detail puts us at about 122 pieces of policy that I couldn't lay my hands on that said we were fully had policy on. So that's a lot of man hours to get even from a sample policy all the way through to adoption. And that's one of the things we want to do is we don't want to be bringing you guys 122 pieces of policy. We need you to, and it's policy that you honestly won't understand. It's very technical. So what we're working towards is working out a method, a resolution where we'll set up a cybersecurity body that can take care of this stuff with the proper representation. What's the next slide?
So basically, so what we're looking at right now is we're asking the council to take and realize that because cybersecurity for the organization, the risk of the organization for these things, it doesn't just fall on any one person. It falls on the organization as a whole, who is who basically is in charge of the governance of that, who has the legal authority, who's able to kind of approve these policies, encumber funds. So really, this is all about creating a formal adoption of this program, and what that means is that we want you guys to do by resolution this program, and then we'll kind of set together a roadmap on what it looks like to do that. There's going to be key roles, responsibilities for people. Hopefully we'll have like a person on the council that serves on that, as well as some executive, other staff that are part of emergency management. So that's what's going to be coming down. So that's like a security advisory group. That is, something that will be the body that will go through, looking at our reports. We want to basically come up with a process where we start getting this framework in place. We got key metrics. You guys understand the risk. You guys need to understand the risk, essentially, because you guys are the ones signing off on that. And we're the technical people that are trying to get us into that better security posture. So with that, just like with any other emergency management plan, there will be some training that's going to have to be involved with all people that are part of the CERT team and that cybersecurity incident response. This kind of falls along with your standard emergency management training. There's special training for finance and all that kind of stuff. So we want to identify those things, get those things in place as well. But essentially, we'll be developing a plan, a roadmap to get there, and part of that is to identify key deficiencies in policy, staffing, and tooling. We know that we're going to have some additional funding to try to get us to be able to get us to make this happen for the city. So what do we need? So what we need is executive and legislative support to adopt and implement a cybersecurity program. And I got some other stuff on here. Sorry. So so that's, and with that is so basically we want to get the cybersecurity program by resolution will be the foundation for establishing the required policy framework, the governance and the funding priorities to mitigate the risk to our organization and align with the city's mission and vision, right? So we're providing services to citizens. What's that look like? How we're going to meet that, protect our citizens' data. And with that, we want to develop the cybersecurity team to be, have someone that's going to help us to take some of that ownership and that load off of us so that they can kind of keep us accountable and we can keep moving forward on this project. And then the IT will be evaluating our current infrastructure. So we've already got some, programs that we are looking at to upgrade, but there's still some deficiencies and even the tooling to make sure that we're able to have the right stuff on that. And we currently have a managed detection response company, but essentially there's some deficiencies that we've identified with them as well. And so we need to mitigate some of those risks. So we'll eventually be coming back with, a request, hopefully on the 9th, we can, we have a draft resolution with some verbiage on that to formally adopt this by resolution. And then once that happens, we also want to try to present a preliminary budget to kind of get us started so that we can at least try to make some targets by the end of 2023 and then continue to carry that project or the program forward. So that's what we are faced with. Do you guys have any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Okay, so with the legislation that they're passing, was there funding available on that in the fall grants?
That's the part that, we have as we got a new grant position that we have in place. That's one of the things that Nick has done a lot of grant work with emergency management and funding for some of these things. There's some things that we got to have in place formally adopted to show that we have adopted a framework and we're making progress by getting there. And hopefully at that point, the grant person will be able to start looking for some of these grant fundings to help us to fund some of the stuff.
Okay, so did the legislation that's on the governor's desk, did that have any funding attached to it? Or did they do that as an
350,000, but roughly was the fiscal note. I forget the exact number, but it was somewhere in the order of 350,000. But that was mainly geared towards Department of Military to bring together a council and start to draft stuff and regulations. So I believe the plan is to have funding available going forward, probably starting in the next budget cycle is when that they'll start to form grant objects and grant programs. But the first step is to formally at the state level identify deficiencies and from there start to fund. That said, there are cybersecurity grants available through Homeland Security block grants that are down through DHS and FEMA. Those are available. I have not been able to find out when the NOFOs are actually available in Washington. So again, we're struggling without a grant writer. So as soon as we get a grant writer, life can get moving a little bit faster on finding those.
You don't like unfunded money?
No, I don't. And I hate those. You don't like those? They're gonna pass legislation, they gotta give us some money to do it with.
Well, so I actually have a follow-up question on that. I'm skimming the bills right now, so bear with me if it's in there and I missed it. Is there actually language in there that mandates that we do this as a city? I see language that references the state, but I don't see anything at the municipal level.
The state is responsible for starting to draft standards and policies and frameworks that they're going to be pushing down, or like I said, the regulations with CGIS is already in place. They've already adopted their new policy, which kind of aligns to this NIST. The NIST is the kind of the gold standard for having a certain program in place. And so the states, they just created that new board with the military defense as well as the state to create the cybersecurity team to start doing this assessment and making those recommendations. And so that's what's going to start happening. And then when you look at when you got, you got the Washington Department of DES, right? So their whole model is going to be like, if you're going to be looking at trying to get some of these programs in place, they're going to be asking you, where do you stand within these frameworks? And so we want to make sure that we are saying, hey, yes, IT ultimately is trying to make these things happen for the organization, but I need my leaders and my executive to support us on make this happen. So part of that is that a formal acknowledgement of this security program, creating it by resolution, allows us to adopt that framework and start building that maturity model, which will show that we're ready to start looking at these grants and funding opportunities.
Okay. And so just if I can paraphrase that to make sure I understood, I appreciate there's a lot of funding tied to this, and this is definitely a concern that we want to stay in front of. But at the current time, I guess we're looking at this kind of like the climate mitigation plan. This is something we want to get ahead of for when it does become a mandate at our level, but it's not currently mandated at our level. Is that correct?
No, no. So it is, so CGIS is absolutely mandated. That is totally there. And the governance and the formal governance structures are built into that standard. And those are actionable in 2024. The 2023 can still be met with an ad hoc model. 2024, we start to pick up sanctionable stuff that is going to be very, very hard to get to an auditor without that. Again, these things all depend on exactly what the questions Washington State Patrol happens to ask, but we have to be prepared for it.
Okay, so if I understand, CGIS is related to
Criminal justice information system. So anything that happens in the police department that is either pulling a record about a criminal incident or creating a record about a criminal incident, all of that data and all of that stuff. So basically anything, most calls for service and any response that the police department does generates criminal justice information. And that's all tied up in that. And that standard, failing that audit means we lose, our officers lose access to NCIC, lose access to being able to, do anything, including running a plate. So basically that brings PD to a screeching halt.
Okay, and so your recommendation is that we just kind of tackle this as a citywide thing?
Yes, and it has to be a citywide thing because we can't isolate PD from the city.
Okay, thank you.
That's the piece that we.
That's what I was missing.
At our size and scale, we can't isolate the PD from the city.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and our systems are very much integrated. We have a shared infrastructure with the Snohomish County. So, all the cities are kind of tied into that, which means we have peering points. This is a big concern with the county, and as with Snow 911, we just had a call about that. We're worried that if one of us get a breach, it could literally just traverse their network as well. And so the county is where we peer to the IGM, which is the intergovernmental network. So we're just all tightly connected. And so a breach somewhere is a breach everywhere.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Anything else for this subject? All right, Troy, Nick, great job.
Thank you.
It's a heavy subject and
It is.
Appreciate it. All right, with that, Council President is handing out the draft agenda for May.
So council workshop next week, May 2nd, we have 4 items currently. Presentation by the Historical Society, a review of our sign code ordinance, specifically to focus on campaign signage. We had a request from a council member to review, and given that we have a new council member and we have some signage probably coming in our future, we're putting that on the agenda, and I will reach out to the other folks who are registered with the PDC, indicating that they're running, to make sure they know that's a topic next week. We're going to talk about City Hall reconfiguration and the impacts of legislature decisions. Any questions?
I may finally miss a meeting. No.
Come on, it'll be fun.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be great.
So the sign code specifically related to campaigns, is there an option to talk about some things that are occurring in our city? And I'll just say it. The number of, what do you call them? Sale signs that are up at Silver Hill Road at a specific business. There must be 10 or 12 of them. And they're
not allowed by our sign.
Yeah, they're rather distracting.
Sure, I think we can broaden the topic for sure.
Okay.
That makes sense, yeah.
Thank you. And I'm not trying to single them out. It's just, I am.
And if we're gonna talk about the ordinance, let's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
And then I think we're gonna be canceling the next meeting because most of us will be in DC.
Not the next one, but the
the
next
next
one.
The next will be in
Right.
the next.
Mhm.
The 9th will be here as a second one, then the 16th is a workshop, on the 16th will be canceled, because we'll be in DC.
Right, yes. Great, so with that. We have no executive meeting, so let's get a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do great things in the community and.